I'm going to read a little bit from Andrew Doyle's piece in Unheard on the shameful arrest of Graham Linehan. Free speech in Britain is on life support. So Andrew Doyle and Graham Linehan are both comedy writers. They're both more than that, but and they know each other both, I think, socially and professionally. So Doyle begins in this piece from September 3rd. Many will remember celebrity outlaw Ronnie Biggs, and again, these are Brits, and so those in America may not remember these stories, but many will remember celebrity outlaw Ronnie Biggs landing at Gatwick Airport in May 2001 and being immediately arrested. Having participated in the Great Train Robbery of 1963, in which £2.6 million was stolen and the driver badly beaten, he subsequently escaped prison and lived for decades as an international fugitive. Most would agree that this arrest, however dramatic, was more than justified. But you might struggle to make the same case for Graham Linehan, the comedy writer most famous for Father Ted. Yet there he was, apprehended by 5 armed police officers after landing at Heathrow Airport on Tuesday, as though he were a gangster of the most feral kind. His crime? Posting a handful of tweets that caused some offense. As for those tweets, on the 19th of April, he posted an image of a trans activist protest in London, along with the caption, "A photo you could smell." When challenged by a user for the unnecessary comment, he replied, "I hate them. Misogynists and homophobes. Fuck them." The third was posted on 20th of April, and in it, Graham wrote, quote, "If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls." End quote. So a little bit more from the same article, not contiguous. As the lawyer Sarah Phillimore pointed out, there is nothing illegal about tweeting advice that any father would have said to their daughters about how to handle men encroaching on their personal space. "If you want to arrest my dad for this," she writes, "he's in a jar on the dresser." For Graham, this is only the latest act in an ongoing circus of persecution, one with multiple ringmasters. He was first contacted by the police back in October 2018 when he was given a verbal warning for dead-naming and misgendering trans activist Stephanie Hayden. A little bit more. And so we're going to come back to the trans thing, but Doyle, deftly, as he so often does, discusses the larger societal implications, specifically in Great Britain, of what is happening here. But as absurd as it sounds, the arrest of a comedy writer at an airport is by no means the most egregious example of state overreach in recent years. We have seen journalists visited by police for wrongthink, citizens imprisoned for posting memes, prosecutions for controversial Halloween costumes, teenagers convicted and jailed for offensive jokes. Freedom of Information requests by the Times revealed that over 12,000 people are arrested each year for offensive comments posted online, and an estimated 250,000 of us have been logged by police as perpetrators of, quote, non-crime hate incidents, mostly without being informed. Parliament should further abolish all hate speech legislation. He is now making policy requests of his government. Given that no two governments can agree on a definition of hate, these nebulous laws are routinely exploited to chill free speech. Section 8 of the Public Order Act 1986 explicitly outlaws, quote, threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior if it is intended, quote, to stir up racial hatred, end quote. Quite apart from the liberal principle that the state should not be attempting to intuit our private motivations, the charge of racism is so often misapplied that the law is effectively rendered useless. Section 1 of the Malicious Communications Act 1988 and Section 127 of the Communications Act 2003 prescribe the sending of material that is deemed, quote, grossly offensive, a hopelessly subjective notion. The Communications Act further prohibits words that cause, quote, annoyance, inconvenience, or needless anxiety, end quote. If every person who posted such messages on social media were convicted tomorrow, the prison population would exceed the number of law-abiding citizens. Either way, these laws are clearly both draconian and incoherent.
It's an unbelievable story.
It is.
Especially in the context of what else is going on in Britain. So you simultaneously have the state protecting grooming gangs.
Yes.
And pretending that it is doing such a good job of protecting the public that it is entitled to police speech. It's absurd. Effectively, it has surrendered with respect to protecting the public, and the public speaking about who might be threatening is no longer tolerated. And it's hard to imagine that that's actually an accident. That is so, it is such a fundamental threat to the ability of a cosmopolitan nation to function that, well, as our good friend Dave says, once is a mistake, twice is a coincidence, three times is enemy action. How many places do you have to see the fundamental pillars of Western civilization under simultaneous attack before you decide, actually, somebody's attacking this civilization because they don't like it, that they actually want to see it fall? And, shame on the British police for participating.
That's right. And before people get upset at how mean Linehan must have been, and at critiquing those who are merely suffering from gender dysphoria, let me share this thread of some of what is happening online, because this, all of his supposed crimes, which were not crimes, happened online, on Twitter, on X, and so this also is on X. Here's a thread. Here we have a picture of a guy who's pretending to be a woman with a presumably pseudo-bloody shirt on that says, "I punch TERFs." TERF, of course, being the acronym standing for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. You have a picture. I mean, it's just absurd. This picture of, I don't even know how to describe this person. He's in a pride Speedo, topless, with a rainbow scarf and a rainbow tail and a clown hat, clown hair. And he says, "Pride, motherfuckers, punch a TERF in the neck." Okay. What is a TERF, you ask? It's anyone who excludes men from their definition of women and vice versa. There's so many of these posts. This person making this thread, Jennifer, has made a collage here. Trans rights are human rights. Punch a Nazi. Fuck fascism. Throat chop a TERF. Curb stomp trust scum. True scum. Make racists scared again. Why are we not physically beating the shit out of bigots? See a TERF, punch a TERF. Blue Sky in general seems so averse to violence. Punch a TERF in the face. Punch a TERF for trans rights today. Punch a Nazi, kick a TERF, etc. It goes on and on and on and on. So what did Linehan do that got 5 police to show up as he landed at Heathrow? He has now moved to Arizona, so he's going back to Heathrow. And as he lands, he's met at the airport by 5 cops. What did he say? He said, again, from the article, the Doyle article that I was just reading from, something to the effect of, look, if there's a dude in the women's room and you can't get him to leave, it's possible that you're going to have to defend yourself. And one option is to kick him in the balls. And he apparently then explained partially what he was talking about is, given the average difference in size between men and women, that is going to be the place that a woman defending herself against a cosplaying man in the dressing room is likely to be able to get to. But he's also pointing out that these people who are pretending to be women have testicles, which demonstrates that they're not women. It's just, the entire thing is a farce. And so he says that in the abstract, and he is met by 5 policemen at Heathrow. And these people are literally saying what you should do is throat chop, punch, kick, all of these actual invitations to violence. Anyone who is a TERF, and again, that's me. That's a lot of women and some number of men who say, you know what? You're not a woman just because you say you are. That's not what a woman is.
So to make this a little bit clearer, he is suggesting a hypothetical scenario in which a man is in a woman's space, which is threatening.
Yes.
These folks are suggesting violence based on a person's belief. And what's more, hitting somebody in the nuts is not a lethal act. Punching somebody in the throat, there is a reason that they are saying throat. Right? They're talking about collapsing your airway. It is supposed to be a dangerous kind of violence that they're advocating. And I would be absolutely shocked if anybody has been arrested at Heathrow for saying punch a TERF in the neck. You've got lots of people saying it online. Presumably some of them have traveled to Britain. Has anybody been arrested? Why is Linehan saying punch a theoretical person who is in the process of being in a space they're not allowed to be in, a protected female space? Why is that abstraction worthy of an arrest, and these people advocating attacking people in a dangerous fashion for ideology, for an ideological difference? Why is that not a much greater risk and therefore resulting in arrests of its own?
And it obviously is. So just one more here. This from the same thread. This phrase "fix your heart or die" transphobe has become increasingly common. And here's just another evident piece example of this. This man in some kind of getup, "Fix your heart or die," and is your guillotine greased yet? These are not these. There's no one who is being addressed specifically here, but they are taking a class of people who say, "I actually believe in reality," and saying, we're out to get you. You're going to change what you believe. You're going to shut up. You're going to change what you believe, or you should die. And it's beyond implicit. I'm not going to. It's beyond implicit, the threats here.
Oh yeah, and there's something that is just confusing of the mind here. If you had a bunch of guys talking about guillotining folks, everybody would understand that there was something to discuss. When those guys pretend to be gals and they say guillotine, somehow it confuses the mind, and it's not like, oh, hey, there's a bunch of guys talking about guillotines. That's worrisome. They're coming from a particular ideology that sounds, very French Revolution-like, frankly.
Yeah, no, and I think there are a lot of women who are very confused still, but I think a lot more women than men are seeing this for what it is, because even if we've never walked into a bathroom and found a guy there, which many of us have at this point, depending on where we live, we have walked down the street and seen the swagger of someone who is clearly a man, but because of the way he is dressed, he is clearly trying to present as a woman. And not all of them, but this is a mental disorder, and the crazy eyes, the brandishing, the way that they are presenting in the world. I saw many of these men last week in Portland, and when I see a man looking like that, not in a dress, I cross to the other side of the street. And when I see a man like that in a dress, I do that, and I also recognize that because he is wearing a dress, I am going to be considered the bigot. This is ancient. Women protect themselves from crazy men. But if crazy men dress up in dresses, somehow a bunch of people are confused. And, I don't actually care at this point how many of them really believe their lies. I don't think it's most of them. I don't think it was ever most of them. It's autogynephilia. They get off on being perceived as something, which of course most people don't even perceive them as, but whatever. But even if some small percentage of the people walking around like this do believe that they're actually women, it is our right as women, and society has already long since agreed that women get to have spaces for women only and get to be protected from the threats of men on the basis of men being more likely to be able to do us harm because of the differences between the sexes. This is a mass delusion that I'm actually just shocked that it's gone on as long as it has. We keep on having wins. We keep on having, both in the United States and Great Britain, wins that say, actually, you know what? It's not true. And, the transing of children is bad. And, all of this, it turns out we were wrong. And these people just get more and more adamant. And frankly, the threats online at least get more and more violent.
Oh, yeah.
And meanwhile, they're going to arrest Linehan at Heathrow? Unbelievable.
Well, think about it this way. The state, I've now forgotten where this quote originates, but the state effectively has a monopoly on violence. That is why the police can show up at Heathrow and say you're under arrest and you can't tell them to fuck off. Okay? Because ultimately, if you do that, they have the right to forcibly take you into custody. Monopoly on violence. Here you have the state, with its monopoly on violence, acting on behalf of men pretending to be women. Now, if you think, oh, nobody's pretending to be women, this is always the result of profound gender dysphoria, blah, 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 blah. Well, no. As soon as you've got the state willing to beat people up on your behalf, you don't think that's going to accumulate some psychopaths? Do you not believe that psychopaths exist? Because if they do, hey, if you're a psychopath and it's like, wait a second, all I got to do is to pretend to be a woman and then the state will beat people up on my behalf, that sounds like fun, right? You're going to accumulate some of these people. So
yes,
let's just own up to that fact. Some fraction, and it appears to be a large fraction at this point, of the people using this particular trope are doing so because civilization is dumb enough to play along.
Yeah.
That's where we are.